This week's Old School update brought the release of Fresh Start servers, which are essentially like an alternate universe of Old School RuneScape where it's 2013 all over again and everybody restarts on brand new accounts with a fresh economy. The difference in Fresh Start Worlds and any other game modes that Old School launches is that with Fresh Start Worlds there are no extra incentives or buffs or any XP multipliers, and for that exact reason they have been met with some heavy criticism. But love them or hate them, I knew I'd be playing Fresh Start Worlds for one reason, and that's swapping. Well, realistically, there was really two reasons, because I also absolutely love the thrill of everybody starting over at the same time, and racing to be the first to achieve certain accomplishments. So for those reasons, Fresh Start Worlds really gave me the best of both worlds. I could start over and enjoy that initial early game race, and at the same time make myself some main game GP. Ultimately, the goal was to see how much money I could make in the first day without having to no life an entire 20 hours to do it, considering I had to go to work only a few hours after launch. Originally, my plan was to do Agility Pyramid because I knew it was one of the best pure cash money makers early on. But after doing some testing on the beta worlds, I realized how awful it was with low-level agility. And with no XP multipliers, I'd have to spend close to 2 hours or more at the Varrock Agility Rooftop course before I could even get to a reasonable level to complete the Agility Pyramid consistently. So I made a last-second audible and I decided to take a thieving route instead. And considering the last-minute changes, I really didn't have too detailed of a plan set out, so I just got things kicked off doing all of the early game thieving quests near Artie that I could think of. I completed Fight Arena, Hazeal Call, and then I actually even was the world's first to complete Tribal Totem. At this point, I had just over 20 thieving, so not only was my best money maker, but also my best training method was stealing silk. And fortunately for me, there were a couple players flipping inventories of silk, so I was able to make a decent little chunk of change pretty early on. And at this point, once I hit my first 10k after the stronghold, I decided to make a swap. I did this first swap about 2 hours after the servers launched, and I was able to swap over 10k to one guy at a rate of 1 to 500. I was pretty nervous. I didn't know how long the rates would stay up, considering I saw how many people were actually on each world, and they were drastically lower than I was expecting. I knew these worlds weren't going to have that crazy of a turnout, but I also expected it to be a little higher than it was. But at this point, even if the rate started crashing pretty hard, I had locked in 5 mil on the main game, so I covered the cost of the bond I used to member up this account. After this swap, I tried to kickstart my thieving training by completing the feud quest, and I was actually the world's first to complete it. It was honestly an absolutely dreadful quest with such low skills. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew you could safe spot both of the bosses, and that wasn't necessarily the problem. It's the fact that the first boss is majorly resistant to magic damage, and it took me like 3 despawns before I finally fully killed it. And honestly, it ended up being slower than just manually training my thieving because I spent an extra 20 minutes on that boss fight. Unfortunately though, not long after completing the feud quest, it was time for me to go to work. I was able to do some thieving at Warrior Women though before I had to leave, and through some merching I was able to scrounge up 30k and make a final swap before I had to leave at a 1 to 500 rate. This was about 6 hours after the servers had launched, and it turned out to be a pretty big pickup because by the time I was able to get a decent amount of playing time again, the rates had crashed to 1 to 200. I was able to make one final swap at the 1 to 200 rate before they ended up crashing any further. I swapped over 60k GP. This was basically everything I had in my bank, all of the merches I had done, and through the help of a friend who ended up making a ton of jewelry from the gems I had merched early on in the day. And at this point, we were edging closer to a full day's time since release, and I had caught whiff of the fact that Dragon Bones were selling for nearly 5k each. I was absolutely exhausted, so there's no footage of me swapping over any more GP. I do have a tiny bit of footage of me killing the blue dragons. And by the end of it, I was probably able to swap over around 250 to 300k at a rate of 1 to 50 before I finally got off. And that brings us to now. So overall, in under a day's played on the brand new Fresh Start servers, I was able to make 52 mil swapping over to the main game. I do owe about 10 mil of this to my friend for the help along the way, so we'll call that at 42 mil profit for day 1 of the Fresh Start servers. Honestly, I had an absolute blast playing them. Realistically, I could have definitely made more money doing other methods. I saw some people having to make some insane money after pulling some ridiculous RNG at revs. Either way, I can't complain. I made a solid chunk of money having fun along the way. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy, consider dropping a like down below. Let me know in a comment down below whether you played the new Fresh Start servers. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you in the next one. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Peace.